Hello everyone and welcome to Shelby This Week. On today's program, more shared assistance for the township and a chief position interview. All this plus much more, but first. Shelby Township is expanding their building department by sharing with neighbors, and they made it official recently by signing an agreement at the municipal office after a vote of approval from both Sterling Heights Council and the Shelby Board. The agreement allows us to service their workers from their building department. Here's Sterling Heights Mayor Richard Noddy and Shelby Township's Building Director Tim Wood.
And this really ties in three communities, Sterling Heights, Shelby, and Rochester Hills. All three of us have the same agreement now, and it's really a big plus for our residents, for our building departments and administration, and it's nice working with these communities, and we do a great job, and really service sharing is what it's all about nowadays, and we applaud Shelby Township, Rochester Hills, and appreciate their cooperation in this endeavor.
More recently, the construction levels activity has increased, and it's placed higher demand for building department services. I know Sterling Heights has experienced the same thing, so this provides us a nice option, a nice outlet to get staff help.
This partnership is much like others the township has with Rochester Hills. No compensation is required for either of these shared service programs. A major position in Shelby Township is up for discussion, the chief of police position for the township, after former police chief Roland Wolkers retired at the first of the year. Recently, 3 men were up for the job. After testing, Steve Stanberry went through an interview process. Stanberry currently is the interim chief of police.
Yeah, we had the interview. Everybody had a chance to ask their questions, and there were many questions. So, and also I think it gave, Captain Stanberry a chance to answer the questions and kind of get a feel for what's expected from the board trustees. The next step will be to actually consider hiring him into that position, and we will make that decision on April 1st at the first board meeting in April, Tuesday, April 1st.
Along with the chief position, 6 other police officers were promoted. April 1st. We'll keep you posted on what happens next. A terrible industrial accident took the life of a young man recently. It happened March 6 around 6 a.m. Shelby Township Police and Fire responded to a call at Colonial Plastics, located in Shelby Township off 23 Mile Road east of Shaner on Philomena Drive. The worker at this McComb County auto supplier was crushed when he tried to clear an obstruction from a press machine. The 23-year-old male was from Washington Township. He was dead when police and fire arrived at the scene. Police say they're not sure what caused the machine to jam, but his death was an accident. His name is not being released at this time. This is the first accident of its kind that's happened at Colonial Plastics. Coming up, animal shelter numbers, anti-bullying, and what all this snow is doing to our crops. Stay tuned.
Cotton balls, duct tape, spoon, needle, thread, scalpel.
The smallest moments can have the biggest impact on a child's life. Take time to be a dad today.
Local animals have something to cheer about. Good things are going on at the local shelter. Stacy Sansatera tells us more.
And then we're going to bring all the cats in here.
Over the last year, the McComb County Animal Shelter has seen some positive changes with the arrival of Jeff Randazzo as director.
I always felt that it's not my shelter. This isn't, my ship to sail. I feel like it's our ship. You know, this is our shelter, and we as a community have to make this flourish. It's our responsibility to do so, and it's going to, and it has been. So I also feel that all the animals that are in our care, in our custody, we have to give them the highest care and quality that we can. And I stick by that to this day. I feel like there's no price tag for animal welfare.
With the shift in focus to animal welfare, the trend toward positive changes has been inspiring, to say the least.
In 2012, the euthanasia rate was 86%. 86% of all the animals that came into the shelter were euthanized. Last year, we lowered it down to 30. But we lowered it, we raised the rate to 70% of all the animals in this shelter lived. And I think that's what the important fact is.
A very important factor indeed. But how did such positive changes happen?
The cats were the #1 animal in any shelter that's euthanized. So we implemented TNR, trap, neuter, and return, so it saved those animals' lives. And then we also implemented best practices with the canines, or dogs, which would be that we treated healthy, treated all the sick animals. We also worked a lot collaborated with rescue groups, and we had the ability to do adoption events, so we had the ability to save a lot more animals.
And this mindset has inspired much needed training that is designed to make the canines more adaptable.
Well, we take the dogs out of here and take them over to the McComb County Juvenile Justice Center. Right now we have a group of 5 kids that are training and 5 kids that are walking the dogs. And then we take 5 dogs out of here. They go over there 4 days a week. They get their basic obedience training. Some of the dogs might be a little more advanced than other dogs, so we'll get them a little bit of extra training.
Which makes them more adoptable. So they do know to sit, settle, stay, that type of stuff. So they know those basic features, and we do dog-to-dog introductions, so that when people are looking to addition for their family pet, they're looking at, does the dog get along with other dogs? Well, yes, it's been through teacher's pet. Will it sit? Will it mind its manners? Yes, it's been through teacher's pet. So it makes the dog much more adoptable.
And making these dogs more adoptable has happened because the community is stepping up.
One of the key components to a successful shelter is volunteers, is foster homes. So those programs, the volunteers, we have a lot of volunteers now because everyone's seen the positive change. But they're the key component to the change, right? So they come and they socialize the animals, they socialize the dogs, they walk the dogs, they help clean, they do all these things, and all that plays an important role to make those animals much more adoptable.
We post pictures on our Facebook page, and they're all sharing them. If one rescue can't pull, they're reaching out to other rescues that may not be aware of us yet and realize what we're allowing them to pull these dogs.
I have to wonder how Jeff is able to stay so positive in the midst of the daily grind and heartache of running a shelter.
Well, I think for me, and I think for a lot of the staff, we talk about it every day so that we don't get compassion fatigue. We talk about it every day. But what we do know is that we have staff here 10 hours a day, 7 days a week, cleaning and caring for the animals. So we know that at the end of the day, when we leave and we're not going to see them for another 8 hours, we know that they're in the best hands possible, right? So we know that they're clean, they've been fed, we've treated all their medical needs, we've done everything that we could do so that we can go home at the end of the day and know that we left, we poured our hearts out here for them.
And that there tells the news story of the McComb County Animal Shelter. And how can you make a difference? How about adopting your next pet from the shelter? Or volunteer, or donate supplies. The possibilities are endless. Kudos to Jeff Randazzo and his entire staff on a job well done. For more information, contact the shelter at 586-469-5115. For Shelby This Week, I'm Stacy Sansatera.
It's always so fun looking at all those cats and dogs at the animal shelter. Go adopt one. A local school recently held an anti-bullying assembly. A popular guest in the community was in attendance. Shelby TV's Sarah Shunk was at the event and has more.
I don't care what street you live on. I don't care what neighborhood you come from. I don't care what city, town, or state you live in, you remember this. The purpose of today, Be a Star, is for everybody to respect one another and end bullying for good.
Powerful words from Anthony Ianni, former basketball star from Michigan State University. Anthony's story has inspired those around him, and he now travels to area schools to help make a difference in the lives of kids.
At age 4, I was diagnosed with pervasive developmental disorder. It's a type of autism. And at age 5, doctors and medical specialists told my parents these words in a private meeting. They told my parents I had autism, but to never expect anything great from me. I had a tough time in school because I had a tough time understanding nouns, verbs, idioms, and sarcasm. And people made fun of me a lot because I would say things that would come out of my mouth that normal people wouldn't say. But then the rest is history, guys.
Although Ianni struggled in school, he always found someone to talk to. And with hard work and a lot of motivation to prove everyone wrong, he ended up playing college basketball for Michigan State University.
I'm proud of two things in my life. The first one is being the first college basketball player with autism, not just in the Big Ten Conference, but throughout the entire NCAA. But I'm more proud of this last accomplishment than anything in my life. And that was on May 5th, 2012. I did the one thing that people said it's impossible. Just throw it out the window because it's never going to be done. And that was when I graduated and got my degree from Michigan State University.
Keeping a positive social environment is crucial so that kids can learn. And with 1,300 students, the junior high is always busy. But Principal Lisa McDill says they find ways to keep up the momentum of the message that was brought here to these students.
We have some class times where things maybe sometimes get shifted up or whatnot, and so we'll do school-wide activities that tie into positive behaviors, messaging, anti-bullying, those kinds of things. So we are able to carve out that time as well so that we can make sure that that momentum does stay and we don't just do this on one day, get all excited, and then forget that and lose that message.
And simply put, that message is
just to basically let your voice be heard. Like, don't be afraid to say something. And, you know, just get as much help as you can. And don't let anybody or anyone tell you can't live your dreams.
For Shelby This Week, I'm Sarah Shunk.
As we recently reported, the Eisenhower High School varsity dance team became the #1 dance team in the nation. The group traveled to Florida for the state champion competitions, 18 girls, 9 of them seniors, along with Coach Rochelle Keel. Principal Nanette Chesney also traveled to Orlando with the group. We spoke with the coach and captains after they got back from their trip.
It feels amazing to know that all of our hard work has paid off. It's just amazing.
The feeling, like I told the girls, is honestly indescribable. We've worked so hard for this for so long, and they put in so much time and dedication, so I'm really proud of them.
It was honestly like the best feeling. It was so unexpected for us. We started off the team as freshmen, and we got third freshman year, third sophomore year, and then we had second last year, and then first this year really tops off our senior year, I think. It's a great way to end.
How did that make you feel?
Honestly, you can't even describe how it feels. We always talk about like we'd be so happy and so excited, but at the moment you have so many emotions, and like the #1 emotion that we have would be like really rewarding because we work for it so hard.
This is the first national title under Keel's belt and probably not the last. Congrats to the entire team. This blistering cold weather has not been fun for anyone, but it does have some positives for our crops. Katie Shimatero tells us the pros and cons on this topic.
There may be an upside to these frigid temperatures sweeping the nation, but we won't find out until spring. According to the Wisconsin Potato and Vegetable Growers Association, deep frost kills harmful pathogens in the ground by the billions. Dan Farmer, a naturalist from Nature Center here in Shelby Township, says that there are pros and cons to having such a cold winter.
One thing you can look at is what it's going to do to your lawn. And hard winters typically can be hard on some of your plantings. Sometimes winters are too cold for some of our shrubbery and other plantings to survive, but there can be an upside to this, and definitely the increased soil moisture will help us to water less next year, and it will help to replenish our low water supplies in lakes, Great Lakes, local lakes, and streams.
Many of us may prefer never experiencing temperatures dipping below zero again. But experts say when temperatures plummet to -20 degrees or below is when nearly all harmful pests are likely to die off, ensuring a vigorous spring crop season.
The cold temperatures can work with the soil moisture in maybe suppressing some of the pests, especially ones that are extended northward over the last 10 years, which have been warmer than average. So it can actually help cut down on those pests.
Since the bitter cold has most likely killed off many harmful bugs in the ground, farmers will not need to use as much pesticides on their crops. But we may see more mosquitoes this summer due to the excessive amount of water.
When you get higher water, there can be more places for mosquitoes to reproduce, and you'll certainly expect at least mid and later spring and summer to get pretty good mosquito numbers.
The Midwest has been hit hard this winter between snow, frost, and deep freeze. And while greenhouses have had a record low business season due to high heating bills and propane shortages, they are expected to have a prosperous spring. For Shelby This Week, I'm Katie Shimatero.
And speaking of these cold months, some not so good news for our aquatic friends. Officials say fish, toads, frogs, and turtles have been turning up dead due to the severely cold winter. The so-called winter kill happens during long, harsh winters. These creatures cannot sustain the cold temperatures. Shallow lakes are prone to deaths of fish and other aquatic creatures. If you're looking for one of the safest cities in Michigan, you don't have to go far. According to the National Security Organization, Shelby Township ranked 19th on the 50 safest cities in Michigan. The township went through a major growth spurt starting in the year 2000 through 2010. All that growth, yet the crime rate remained surprisingly low. No murders or manslaughters were reported in 2012. Good to know we live in such a safe city. A foundation driven by volunteers is coming to our area to find a cure for childhood cancer. St. Baldrick's Foundation, committed to charity work and funding research, they're having an event on Saturday, March 15th. People are shaving their heads at this event. It's a popular challenge to show the world they support funding children's cancer. The head shaving fundraiser is Saturday, March 15th at 11:30 till 5:30. Stop by the Village of Romeo Lions House to donate to this great cause and maybe get your head shaved. A local woman stricken with an unfortunate disease compiled stories of hope wrapped up in a book recently. Courage, wisdom, and perseverance of how patients dealt with this disease is unveiled. Here's John Martin with the story.
Shelby Library Writers Club member Levon Upton has published a book that reveals what patients with Parkinson's disease experience and what their friends and family need to know about living with this degenerative disease. The book is called Behind the Mask of Parkinson's Disease.
When I was diagnosed with Parkinson's myself, and when I was diagnosed, I found a Parkinson's support group to attend. And after I attended several months, they asked me to tell my story. So at a luncheon, I told them my story, and they said, wouldn't it be great if we could tell everybody's stories in a book? I said, I'll do it, because I love writing. And I interviewed over 50 people, either people with Parkinson's or their caretaker, and wrote a book with their interviews included in the book. It's called Behind the Mask of Parkinson's Disease.
So why do you call it that?
I call it Behind the Mask of Parkinson's Disease because I noticed, and those of you who don't know anything about Parkinson's wouldn't know what was wrong, but I noticed that almost everyone with Parkinson's has a frozen-like face, a mask-like face, where it looks expressionless. You know, they don't have much of expression on their face. And so behind the mask, I found these fascinating people. They had a great sense of humor and very bright, usually, and interesting people. Probably one of the most fascinating stories is a woman who's now 65, but she's had Parkinson's since age 20. And it's usually something that doesn't occur until in the 50s and an older age. In fact, it can go for years undetected. But she had it in her 20s when she was a college student. And she went on and became a teacher, even though she had really extreme dyskinesia, it's called, when there's jerky movements in the body. And so the school system worked with her, and she was able to teach second and third graders for years. So that's one of the most fascinating stories, I think.
What's one of the big misunderstandings people have about people who have Parkinson's disease?
They isolate themselves and they get shunned because they have this vacant look, and also the voice goes. You can tell that mine is kind of fading, but they can't be heard after a while, and they take a long time to express themselves, so people don't wait for it, and it isolates them.
So how will this book help somebody who's a friend or relative of somebody with Parkinson's disease?
Well, it helps in one way because a friend of mine who doesn't have Parkinson's, and she's younger, she said after reading the book, she saw a man in Myers, and she said, I bet you he had Parkinson's. So it's an awareness thing that people who may not have paid much attention to Parkinson's may be aware of. And it helps people, especially a lot of these people have bought it for their children because they say, my kids don't really, even though the kids are adult, my kids don't really understand what's going on with me. And some of the symptoms are superficial, and they don't really understand the emotional things and problems that are going on. And then it helps the caretaker too, and people caretaking Parkinson's people.
To order Behind the Mask of Parkinson's Disease, contact Behind the Mask, P.O. Box 82365, Rochester, Michigan 48308, or email parkinsonsbook@comcast.net. The book is also available online at createspace.com and amazon.com. For Shelby This Week, this has been John Martin reporting.
A local official made an announcement recently. Clerk Stan Grote announced his candidacy for state representative.
I'm looking forward to go to Lansing and implement my Republican common sense conservative philosophy to make Michigan a better place to live and raise a family. I do have experience in private sector as well in public sector, and I want to apply that experience going to Lansing, making government more efficient, more effective, and more responsive to the taxpayers.
Grote has served as a local public official in Shelby Township since 2012. Club Monte Carlo is holding a fish fry for a good cause. Every Friday from 4 till 8 p.m. You can dine in or carry out, only $9 per person, and $1 of your paid adult ticket will be donated to the church or charity of your choice. Partial proceeds benefit Shelby Township Veterans Memorial. Stop by 50265 Van Dyke Avenue for good food and a good cause. Up next, a change in our clocks. Stay tuned.
It happened. This week in history. March 8th, 1945. Born at Cedars of Lebanon Hospital in Los Angeles, California, is George Michael Dolans Jr. The son of actors George Dolans and Janelle Johnson, George Jr. began acting in 1956, starring in a children's program. And Pleasant Valley Sunday. March 9th, 1959. At the American International Toy Fair in New York City, Ruth Handler's new creation makes its debut. Marketed as a teenage fashion model, Barbie sold over 350 units in its first year, thanks to a concentrated TV ad campaign. It's been estimated that over 1 billion Barbie dolls have been sold in over 150 countries. March 10th, 1998. In San Leandro, California, actor Lloyd Vernon Bridges Jr. dies of natural causes at the age of 85. He became an actor after studying political science at UCLA and joined the stock company at Columbia Pictures. He returned to acting after serving in the Coast Guard during World War II. And though he was briefly blacklisted in the 1950s, he eventually resumed acting after getting cleared by the FBI. He gained his early recognition as Mike Nelson on the TV show Sea Hunt, but acted in over 150 feature films. March 11th, 1916. At the Charleston Navy Yard in Massachusetts, the U.S. Navy commissions the USS Nevada. Looked at as the United States' first super dreadnought, the Nevada, which cost almost $6 million, was sent overseas during World War I, but saw no action. During World War II, she became battle-hardened, first being the only battleship to get underway during the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor, though she suffered 60 killed and 109 wounded. After repairs, she then saw action during the June 6 invasion of Normandy, bombing the German shoreline batteries. She then was sent to the Pacific in 1945 to bombard Japanese defenses at the battles of Iwo Jima and Okinawa. After a brief stay in Tokyo Bay after the Japanese surrender, the Nevada was used in atomic tests near Bikini Atoll. March 12, 1933. After gaining great success as the governor of New York by appealing to radio listeners during his gubernatorial radio addresses, U.S. President Franklin Roosevelt begins the first of his eventual 30 fireside chats. March 13, 1964. In the early morning hours in the borough of Queens in New York City, 28-year-old Catherine Susan Genovese is attacked returning to her apartment. Though there is some dispute in the attack, what is known is she was approached by Winston Moseley, who chased her down and stabbed her in the back. Genovese's screams were heard by several neighbors, but none thought it a serious matter. Moseley did retreat after one neighbor eventually shouted to leave the girl alone, but he came back later and attacked Genovese again as she struggled to get inside her apartment. A later investigation by police revealed that approximately a dozen neighbors had heard or observed portions of the attack, but did nothing to help. It was then that the American public began to hear of the bystander effect, which studied the reaction of bystanders during criminal assaults. After one of Catherine Genovese's neighbors was quoted as not wanting to get involved. It happened. This week in history.
Don't let the dreary sub-zero weather fool you. At 2 a.m. on Sunday, March 9th, your clocks will move an hour ahead or spring forward to begin daylight savings time. Maybe one day the weather will turn around and it will be warm, but for now, adding that extra hour of sunlight will hopefully put you in a better mood. So don't forget, daylight savings time begins March 9th at 2 a.m. And that's Shelby This Week. You can watch us online all the time at shelbytv.org. And don't forget to like us on Facebook at facebook.com/ShelbyTWPTV. Thanks for watching.
Underneath everything we are all people. And when we reach out a hand to one, we can influence the condition of all. That's what it means to live united.